Okay, everybody ready? So at this time, I'd like to go to item 2.1, call to order. I'm going to call the Paris Union High School District Board meeting to order at 3:30 p.m. I'm going to ask for a roll call to determine a quorum. This will be by, we don't vote on this one, right? No, just by voice. Trustee Vallejo,
Here.
Trustee Garcia, Trustee Campos,
Here.
Trustee Nellison,
Here.
and myself, Trustee Stafford, here. We have established a quorum, and we're open. So, go to item 3.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees on closed session items only. Are there any public comments on closed session items?
No public comments this evening.
Okay. So we're going to skip the speech since there's nobody here yet. At this time, we'll go to item 4.1, adjourn to closed session. Do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
So moved.
Trustee Nellison, Trustee Garcia. At this time, we adjourn to closed session. Oh, are we going to vote on this one? Okay.
Let us vote.
We're moving. Okay, you can go ahead and vote. No vote, we just move. Okay, 4.1, adjourn to closed session, passes 5 in favor. We are now adjourned to closed session at 3:31 p.m. Okay. At this time, we'd like to reconvene in public session. Item 5.1, the regular meeting of the Paris Union High School District is reconvening at 5:15 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, ready? Begin. Thank you. Please remain standing. We'll have a moment of silence for the students from Paloma Valley that have recently had a loss that I don't even know how to put into words. But a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. At this time, we'll go to item 7.1, and we're going to recess the board. We'll recess the meeting to conduct a regular board meeting of the California Military Institute Charter School. We are recessing the meeting at 5:17 p.m. Okay, you can join the meeting. Everybody in? We have everybody? Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call to determine a quorum. Trustee Vallejo? Trustee Garcia? Trustee Campos? Trustee Nellison?
Here.
And myself, Trustee Stafford, here. We have established a quorum. At this time, we'll go to item 3.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees on closed session items only. Oh, sorry. Okay. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:18 p.m.
We have no requests, public requests for
closed session items.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bennett. Do we need to adjourn? 4.1 is adjourn to closed session?
No, we don't need that this evening.
We go to 5.1. Okay. So we'll go to item 6.1, revision and adoption ordering of agenda.
So moved.
Okay, trustee Nelson, trustee Garcia. You can vote electronically. 6.1 is 5 in favor, no objections. We'll go to 7.2, student representatives to the Board of Trustees. Okay.
I guess that's me. Thank you. Student from CMI, Student Representative Cadet Captain Angel Garcia Lemos.
Members of the board, Mr. Bennett, and members of the cabinet. My name is Cadet Major Angel Garcia, the 9th Brigade Commander, and in this presentation, I'll be discussing all that's been happening here at CMI. I want to start off by highlighting some of the activities that have been happening here at CMI. This is our Student of the Month, Karen Moreno. She is in the top of her class and is a hardworking cadet. These are some photos from our boys basketball team. The individuals on the team are hardworking and their efforts are showing on the court. In regards to JROTC, these individuals are from the United States Army Marksmanship Team. They shared their Army stories and showed the many opportunities the United States Army has to offer. These are some of our upcoming events. The Individual Major Awards from January 27th to the 29th, and Non-Commissioned Officer Academy from February 12th, 10th through the 12th. These are some protocols that are still being taken into place for the well-being and safety of our cadets. With that, I conclude my presentation on the California Military Institute. If there are any questions, please refer them to the adult representing CMI. Thank you all so much for listening and have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to item 7.3, CMI-TA President Angel Love Barons. Is she here tonight?
I don't see Angel here this evening.
Okay. We'll move on to 7.4, CSEA President Rosa Galvin. Is she present tonight?
She had contacted us earlier that she couldn't make it this morning, but they're a brand-new charter, CSA charter. They just got chartered about a month ago, and Rosa was selected as the president for them, but she said she'd be here next month with their exec board team, and I'll be introduced at that time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bennett. 7.5, Principals Update.
President Stafford, board members, Superintendent Bennett, and Cabinet. It's great to see you tonight again. David failed to mention he did that all the way from India, by the way, where he's representing the California Cadet Corps CMI in our district. So that's why I was a little bit shorter this evening than usual. All right. Let's see. This button right there. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, James. All right, so one of the quotes we looked at as a staff celebrating Martin Luther King was, "But the function of education," that really fit well with our mission statement. And Martin Luther talked about character quite a bit in this statement, and our mission statement for CMI also focuses on character. So I just wanted to share that with you this evening. Function of education being very much focused on intelligence, but very much character as well. So we are continuing on our mission as a school. We built this mission statement together collaboratively. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that we as a staff agreed to not just provide opportunities to our students, but to really ensure that they're successful. That takes us to a higher level of commitment in terms of rigor, academics, leadership, and character. We dissected this mission statement today, being that it was a new year. We looked at it together, and we recommitted as a staff to continue to fulfill this mission at our school and at our community. And so I have some data to show you this evening to illustrate some of that progress that we're making as a school. Really proud of our staff for being able to do that. New year, let's take a look how we did. There are a number of different criteria and indicators, but we are looking at the CMI success rate, and we wanted to compare it all the way to 2019, which was pre-COVID. And so we measured the success rate of our students. And if you look at the 2019, we calculated 468 classes where students were not successful. And then 2020 is, of course, when COVID hit us pretty hard, all of us as a district and as a nation. And that number, as you can see, went up to almost 1,300. But then we came back, right, with resolve and introduced some new supports for our students. And we were able to get that down by over 50% to 634. And then today, as I was reviewing our results, we are at 426, which is even better than what happened back in 2009, pre-COVID. So we're moving forward in a great way as a staff, and I'm just thankful for the hard work of all of our people and all the support that you guys are always providing to us. We're moving forward. You already saw that in Gabriel's presentation, but I'm really proud of the fact that the Olympic team chose CMI to come and present. It was really quite an honor to have them present to our students, encourage them. And then just an invitation, big game next Monday. We're playing Temecula Prep. That's our rival. Our varsity boys are undefeated this year, 6-0. So if you're able to come, 3:30, we would love to have you. That's all for tonight. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Okay. Thank you, Principal Milosevic. Our next item is 8.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees on non-agendized items.
No takers this evening.
Okay, thank you, Grant. We'll go to our next item. 9.1 is the consent calendar, approval of consent calendar items. Do I have a motion? Garcia, Campos, okay. Okay, you can go to electronic vote. We have 9.15 in favor, none opposed. We go to item 10.1, discipline, December 2022, monthly suspension report. Is that a typo? 10.1, it says, well, let's do this. 2020, it says 22. Oh, okay. All right. So 2022 monthly suspension report. We'll go to, that's an information item. Next is action item, 11.1, personnel. Certificated personnel action items. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. Trustee Garcia, Trustee Nelson. Vallejo. Okay. And we can vote electronically. $11.1 passes, 5 in favor, none opposed. Number 11.2, personnel, classified personnel action items. Do I have a motion? Trustee Garcia, Trustee Campos. You can vote electronically. Eleven point two passes, 5 in favor, none opposed. We'll go to information items. 12.1 curriculum. This is revised social science course. Criminology meets A through G requirements. Next item is the information item. 12.2 curriculum. Revised social science course, youth and law, meets A through G requirements. Our next item is 12.3 curriculum. New agricultural course, agricultural projects, meets A through G requirements. Next item, information item, 12.4 curriculum, new agriculture course, agriculture welding, not an A through G course. And our next item is 12.5 curriculum, new social science elective course, general psychology, meets A through G requirements. We'll move now to 13.1, other items by the superintendent.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. We'll go now to 14.1, other items by the Board of Trustees. We'll start with Trustee Garcia.
I just want to thank Mr. Milo for everything. Keep sending those invitations. I'm still trying to get used to the calendar, but I plan on attending and tell all the cadets thank you and good job.
Next, trustees, Trustee Campos.
Yes, I would like to extend my thank you and apology because last time that was my first rodeo and I didn't realize that that was my opportunity to talk about all the great things that you did. And so I apologize for that. And like Trustee Garcia said, I'll be looking forward, thank you, to wearing this at an event. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Trustee Campos. Trustee Vallejo.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the updates, Mr. Milo Seljevic. Does that make sense? Is that good enough? I'm still going to practice, don't worry. But thank you so much for your leadership because it really, you can show how much you care and how you treat your staff, and your staff is amazing. They're always nice. And I just thank you so much for that because CMI is doing phenomenal right now. There are times where I go and visit, and even the front desk, they're super nice. So I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you at the game too because I'm very excited to go.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Vallejo. And myself, Trustee Stafford. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed David. David, you did,
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to say thank you. I'm not sure who gave us these, but very nice scarf embroidered with the CMI logo and everything. Yellow and black, I kind of feel like a real Hufflepuff now, even though that's not my house. But I appreciate it. It will definitely come in handy when on those cold days when you go see soccer games or late fall football games, that type of thing. So thank you very much.
thank you, Trustee Nelson. And myself, Trustee Stafford, thank you so much for the gift and the invitation to the game. We appreciate what you're doing at CMI, and it's a pleasure to see you. Hopefully everyone had a good break, and we'll continue on. Thank you. So we'll go to 15.1, which is adjournment. Adjourning the regular meeting of the California Military Institute for January 18th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Trustee Garcia, Trustee Nelson. And you can vote electronically. And at this time, we are adjourned at 5:33 p.m. So at this time, The regular board meeting of the Paris Union High School District is reconvening. We're going to wait just a minute for that clock to tick. That would help. Huh? It's not on there. Oh, there it is. Okay. So at this time, we'll reconvene at 5:34 p.m. We'll go to revision, adoption, ordering of agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to pull,
So moved. We have to open,
that's
a motion and a second first. So who's,
I'll second.
You're on the ordering of agenda, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, and now we have the discussion.
Mr. President, I'd like to pull item 1120 off the agenda, please, and put it for next month.
Okay, 1120, which is our
Board policies.
board policies. Do we need a vote on that? No, okay, no vote necessary. Oh, okay. So we're going to vote on 8.1 still, the revision, adoption, ordering of agenda, January 18th, 2023.
I'll make a motion.
You've got them already, yeah.
It's already there.
We're just waiting for the vote to come up electronically, so. Eight point one passes 5 in favor, none against. We'll go now to oral reports. 9.1, report out of closed session.
No report out of closed session this evening, Mr. Stafford.
Okay, thank you. We'll go now to 9.2, district update by superintendent.
Just have a few things. I'm going to start out. We have such great people in this district, and we get to honor them, a few of them every year when they're selected as employees of the year. We do it at the site level and the office level, and then we do district-wide. And we have our district-wide employees of the year here this evening. I'd like Mr. Skorpanich to come up and introduce those for us.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. As Mr. Bennett shared, we do have amazing employees in our district. You know, we have a little over 1,000 permanent employees, plus we have another 500 plus part-time and substitute employees, and we get to recognize them and honor them each year. We do a number of rave awards on a monthly basis, but this year we get to recognize the cream of the crop, and these are employees that just represent the very best of each of our employees at every level. So we have a handful of them here tonight as our district employees of the year, and I'd like to bring them all up, and you guys can all come up here together, and then if the board is so inclined, we'd like to have you come off the dais, and we'll take one big group picture right here in the front. So with that, we have two amazing teachers of the year, and from Paris High School, special education teacher Kevin Couchon. Just hang out right here. Just do it all together in a second. And then from Liberty High School, a math teacher, Gabriel Ladner Mejia. And so Mr. Couchon and Ms. Ladner Mejia are our teachers of the year representing our school district. I should have said at the beginning that all of these employees of the year will be recognized within the district later in the year. We also get recognized at the Paris Gala, and they also go on to represent the district at the county as our candidates for Riverside County Teachers of the Year. So congratulations. You guys are staying here, though. We also have our Counselor of the Year from Paloma Valley High School, William Warren. Also from Paloma Valley, another Wildcat is our Classified Employee of the Year, and that's Luis Robles. You almost don't recognize him without a Paloma Valley hat on, right? We have our Classified Administrator of the Year, and that is Mr. James Heckman from our IT department. We have our Site Support Administrator of the Year, and he works behind the scenes, make sure our district is running properly, and that's Mark Sinnott. And then last but not least, we also have our Principal of the Year, and I know she was in here, but I think she popped out.
She had an event with the city that she's being
Okay.
recognized at also. So.
Oh, okay, so see, getting recognized multiple places. And that's Dr. Erica Tarjeda from Liberty High School. So again, all of our employees of the year are going to be recognized at a special event that we have later in the year here in Paris, and then within the school district, and then outside of the school district, they're recognized at the county with a county event, and then a couple of other special things we have going on. So all kinds of fun stuff for you guys for the remainder of the year. So if we could have the board and Mr. Bennett come on down, we'll take a picture of you right here. Right in front of here. Don't go anywhere, Mark. All right. Here we go. We count three. 1, 2, 3. One more. And last one. All right. Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It is. Congratulations. Congratulations.
A couple other things I'm going to just talk about just for a second as a report. The start of last Tuesday we started our second semester. Last Tuesday, Monday the 9th, we started our second semester, and everything started off really well. They had activities at the school for the first day, and then getting back at the classwork, and kids are excited to be back in school. It's great when you see them excited in the staff. So that's been wonderful. Last Wednesday, we had Student of the Month program over at Sizzler with 4 students from our district being recognized from Paloma, Heritage, Paris High, and this time it was CMI had a student there. So, and they're all females this time, so ladies rule the world, I guess, in that. But Sally does a great job over there with that event. I'm glad she was there because I don't have to MC it then. I just get to kick back and watch. Something that really neat that we got, Jen just sent it to me today, I think it was. Paloma Valley High School has earned the College Board's AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award for expanding young women's access to both AP Computer Science A and AP Computer Science principles. This award acknowledges 1,105 schools throughout the country for their work in one of those areas. But Paloma Valley made it in both areas, and they're one of 64 schools in the country to be recognized for that. So we want to say congratulations to Jem and her team. That puts a little pressure on the other principals to make sure that we're pushing the computer science program, get more kids in that, because especially young ladies, and there's tons of jobs open in that. So it's a great area for them to go into. And that would conclude my report for this evening, Mr. Stafford.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bennett. We'll go now to 9.3, student representatives to the Board of Trustees. Trustee Nelson will introduce Heritage High School student representatives.
Yes, from Heritage High School, student representatives Naomi Anderson and Faith Casper.
My name is Naomi Anderson. And I'm Faith Casper. We hope you had a relaxing winter break, and we are excited to show you what has been occurring here at Heritage for the start of the semester. ASB started off the semester with our winter rally. The theme was arcade, featuring Mario, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and Space Invaders. We had amazing performances from cheer, dance, and our jazz band. Our winter sports were also introduced as they continue their season. Our next rally will be March 24th, leading up to the Patriot Olympics. This last Friday, we had motivational speaker Justin Hudson come to campus and present to some of our classes on campus. As well as presenting to our classes, he also set up a DJ booth in the quad for music and fun for the students. Thank you, Mr. Martin, for having Justin on campus, and we look forward to seeing him again. We would like to take this moment and recognize Riley Divers for being awarded Student of the Month for January. She is a senior in ASB and a cheer captain that puts many hours of work into his teams that she leads. Thank you for everything you do at Heritage. Here are a few of our upcoming events. The final cap and gown order date is January 19th. The Black Box begins on January 20th. National Signing Day is February 1st. Mr. Heritage starts on February 3rd. The blood drive is February 9th, and winter formals on February 11th. This concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for the continuous support of what we do at Heritage, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Heritage High School. We'll go now to Trustee Campos, who will introduce Liberty High School student representatives.
I'd like to introduce Liberty High School student representatives Sydney Dougherty and Cecilia Veramontes.
And Cabinet. My name is Sydney Doherty. I'm Liberty High School's ASB president.
And I'm Cecilia Villamontes. I'm the ASB vice president. And here are some current and upcoming events at Liberty High School.
Here at Liberty, ASB is starting to begin highlight games. Highlight games are to support and give awareness to our athletic teams. And at games, we have our cheer and band perform.
At Liberty, we have fourth pathways that have their own color, and every Thursday we have Pathway Day. Students can wear their pathway shirt or color to receive points for our pathway competition at Liberty.
Some upcoming events we have at Liberty are on January 18th, we have our highlight game for girls soccer. On January 19th, we have our highlight game for wrestling. On January 20th, we have our winter pep rally. And January 26th, we have our student senate meeting. And February 14th to the 17th is our Valentine's Spirit Week. Thank you, and as always, go Bison!
Okay, thank you, Liberty High School. Myself, Trustee Stafford, will introduce Paloma Valley High School student representatives Megan McCannigue and Cassandra Madrigal.
Hello, President, School Board, and Superintendent Mr. Bennett. I'm Megan Makatangay, this year's ASB Treasurer.
And I'm Cassie Madrigal, one of two of this year's ASB Secretaries. We hope you all had a wonderful holiday season and are ready to begin the next semester.
Over the break, our Wildcat wrestlers were dominating the competition, going undefeated so far this season, with Michaela Koryak finishing as a runner-up and Carissa Turnwell in third place at the annual Napa Valley Classic that featured 120 teams statewide. Leading into the second semester, we have our Winter Rally and Spirit Week, the Spring Musical, the Spring Dance,
Prom, Powder Puff, Senior Night, and Senior Awards. Of course, all these events are subject to change, and that's all we have for this month. We'll see you all next month. Bye!
Okay, thank you, Paloma Valley High School. Next is Trustee Garcia will introduce Paris High School student representatives.
I'd like to call up Nicole De La Torre Hernandez and Daisy Sanchez from Paris High.
Good evening, Superintendent Bennett and Cabinet. I'm Nicole and I'm Daisy, and these are our updates since the last time we saw you guys.
On December 8th, we had our first choir performance here at school, set up by ASB in the midst of a lot of extra work because Raleigh was coming up for winter formal and everything, and it turned out to be really nice. I really love the performance.
You'll just have to take our word for it.
Yes.
We can't seem to find pictures or videos to show you guys.
Yeah, so no this time, but it was a great time.
On December 9th, we had our winter rally. We presented our winter sports. In order to get them into the gym, we used our inflatable tunnel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daisy. We used our inflatable tunnel, which we only use during football season for some reason.
Yeah.
So it was like really fun to like cause a scene, like, you know, get everybody just hyped for it. We had performances from our dance team, Claw's dance team, and then we also had our Pro E dance team for the first time perform, and they're more focused on like K-pop type music.
Yeah.
We also had a grupo perform, the same grupo that we told you guys already about.
For Dia de los Muertos.
They performed again here, and it's actually really nice to, you know, have your own student body kind of showing their interest.
Yeah, it was really interactive. Students came down from their seats on the stands, and like it made like a mini party in the middle of a rally. It was really fun.
Yeah. So that was our winter rally, and then we had finals week. After that, we had winter formal. Our winter formal was fairy garden themed, and for seniors, our color was white. Well, that was also for the rally, but they're kind of all intertwined. So we had our fairy garden theme. We have pictures of that too. That was actually a really fun night. The cookies were really good. Yeah, so we'll show you guys some pictures right now.
So one of our last updates for you guys this month is that on January 9th, this past Monday, we had
Panther Camp.
Yes,
We
thank
had
you.
Panther
I
Camp.
forgot that word. We had Panther Camp. And just to welcome the kids back to school, to remind them of the rules and their counselors, let Mr. Santos send out a message to the students to start off the semester right. And ASB pulled together some magical stuff, actually, because we were on a little bit of a late notice schedule, and we managed to put together 3 assemblies for a school-wide event, in which our own staff talked about their own lives. And it was kind of really cool to hear their perspective, because I think as students we're all so focused on what's going on within the teenagers that we forget that the teachers were once us. Yeah, so that was really fun. That is all we have for you guys today. So we wanted to say we're social.
Be social.
Follow us on our socials, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Paris High School. Trustee Vallejo will introduce Pinacati Middle School student representatives.
I would like to introduce student reps Alyssa Chopu and Destiny. Does anybody know how to pronounce it? Cannot pronounce it. No? Is it?
Good evening, Mr. Bennett and members of the cabinet. My name is Alyssa Chup and I am an ASB representative.
And my name is Destiny, and I'm also an ASB representative.
For the month of January, we will be doing a student voted Teacher of the Month and a student voted Student of the Month.
And every Monday we do a chalk walk, which is basically motivational chalk all around the school. And we're going to be having Fun Fridays, which we go out and play musical chairs and music at lunchtime.
Good evening, my name is Victor Castaneda, ASB President of Pinacati Middle School.
And my name is Keani Preston, ASB representative.
And for the next couple of months, we'll be having some fun activities for the schools, such as our Black History Gallery Walk, our Valentine's Dance, and our school-wide talent show.
For Black History Month Gallery Walk, it will be representing the achievements of our Black community during Black History Month.
And for our Valentine's Dance, we will be having it in the gymnasium during lunch, during school hours. And for our school-wide talent show, we'll be doing it towards the ending of March. And thank you for your time.
Congratulations to our Teacher of the Month, Mr. Gomez. He's a very kind and chill teacher. I'm so grateful to have him.
And I'm also grateful to have him as a teacher because, like she said, he's chill and he makes sure that we get our work done and isn't super strict like most teachers.
Thank you, Pinacati Middle School. We'll continue with oral reports, and we'll go to 9.4, CSEA President Nathaniel Nash. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I know this is my first time, so I'm still getting used to everything, but I'm grateful for the work that we already started with the district, and I'm looking forward to continuing our great relationship with CSEA and the district and, of course, the board. We are grateful CSEA and the board, the district have agreed to send 2 members to the CSEA-sponsored Paraeducator Conference. This is the 26th year that they're doing it, so we're sending 2 members from each school site. and I'm very grateful for that. Being a paraeducator myself, it's great training. I've been to it twice now, and I can't thank the district enough for sending me in the past. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't really have much to say. I'm a little bit nervous because this is my first time up here with everybody. But I'm looking forward to working well with everybody and continuing that relationship that has been grown and fostered over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go now to 9.5, PSEA President Jason Miller.
Gather myself up here. Congratulations to the employees of the year that were up here. Kevin Cachan, Gabriel Ladner Mejia, Will Warren, James Heckman, Luis Robles, Mark Sinnott. And about that computer science award, if you know Mike Wilson, that guy's a boss. He's amazing. He runs an amazing computer science program. Recently, we had an issue come up where non-PSEA members were teaching classes that were PSEA classes. This has been fixed. I'm not bringing it up because it's a problem. I bring this up to highlight a process that is unique to PUHSD, where administration actually listens to the union and solves problems quickly. It is difficult to describe because some districts do not have a substantial relationship with their unions. Primarily because in some districts, not all, but in some places, there's an attitude of administrators are the bosses and the employees are just employees, and somewhere in between is the union. In some districts, that is the only relationship that has existed between administration and the union. But here, we have a commitment that administration will actually fix problems where they exist, and there's a lot of follow-through at this district. At PUHSD, administrators don't often just say they will try and look into something just to get the union to shut up. Much of the administration follows through with their commitments to solutions. For our part, PSEA does not rush to draw a line in the sand or just go to filing something like an unfair labor practice or a grievance or whatever. For us, that is the last resort. How many here have actually been in an unfair labor practice hearing or mediation or a grievance hearing or mediation? I suspect not many, maybe a few. There are a lot of time and effort. It is easier and less stressful to sit down and hammer out solutions rather than go through a long, drawn-out, and costly process. I'm not saying PSA will not file these things if it comes to that, but quite frankly, I cannot remember a time in recent memory that it has come to that. So if I ever do bring a serious issue up here, or we do file some kind of complaint, know that we would have tried to resolve it with the cabinet first, and then it must be a pretty serious problem, a real issue, if you will. We were able to fix the issue of the non-PSEA workers teaching PSEA classes worth of workaround that was favorable to both PSEA and the district. Those are the best. Those solutions that work for both sides are always the best. Contrary to popular opinion, you can sometimes have your cake and eat it too. A solution that is win-win all around are the ones that we should look for if they exist for a particular issue. This only works if administrators are committed to trying to fix a problem and they are committed to this ideal at PUHSD. I checked with the PSEA president and he told me PSEA is also committed to fixing problems instead of just filing complaints or starting fires. Thank you for this time to speak.
Thank you, President Miller. Okay, so we'll go now to oral reports 9.6, comments by the Board of Trustees. Trustee Garcia.
You caught me when I was writing notes down. First, I want to congratulate all the employees of the year. Excellent job. Keep up the good work. I love the fact that we recognize the employees because they're the foundation. Without everybody, we wouldn't exist. Without the kids, we wouldn't exist. And of course, our objective is the kids for success. Mr. Nash, I haven't interacted with you yet, but if we could connect somehow, exchange numbers, email me, whatever, but let's connect. Mr. Miller, thank you for those kind words. That makes me happy to know that the unions are being successful with the district and they have listening ears. That's big for me. So thank you very much for all that. And of course, everybody else, all I can say is thank you because you guys are amazing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Garcia. Next up is Trustee Campos.
Yeah, I would kind of like to piggyback and thank all the employees of the year. Just the work that you do, I completely understand being a teacher, so I know what goes on. It's a daily grind and a daily effort, and we do really appreciate all your efforts that you give. And Mr. Nash, hey, you know what? I was nervous last week during my first board meeting, so I totally understand, and it'll be fun just to kind of see you grow throughout the time in your presidency here. And Mr. Miller, thank you also for letting us know that. And I just wanted to. Lot's been going through my mind, and just to kind of let everybody know, whether you're a parent, classified, just a staff here. For me, when I ran for this position, I wanted to make sure that I was listening to what the people wanted out there, in the different places. If there's issues, hopefully we can resolve them, like Mr. Miller said, because that's probably the best way for everybody. And also understand that sometimes people want to tell us and this is the one thing I really appreciate about the last board meeting, is that we heard the pros and the cons. The positive things are always great, but in order for us to move forward and to make the right decisions, we have to hear what the concerns are. And so, not necessarily to always bring us what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. And hopefully that we'll be able to take that into consideration so that we can resolve any problem that we have out there, and kind of like Mr. Garcia said, to make sure that it benefits the students first and the staff as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Campos. Next up is Trustee Vallejo.
Hello. I also just wanted to echo with what my other board members have said. Nathaniel, you did great. I loved your speech. It's good. I really appreciate you and Jason for being presidents of these unions because it's very, very important. And you guys are on the forefront of what are the bad things going on and what are also the good things that are going on. So I do appreciate how transparent you guys are with us because we need to know all of these things, bad and good. And I'm very happy that you guys are on their leadership because it's what we need. So I really do appreciate you guys for that so much. I just also want to say that I appreciate staff in general because I know it's been hard. I do think, we should all just express gratitude. This is what I'm trying more. But I really appreciate you guys all because working in a district in general is very, very hard. I appreciate you guys all in whatever occupation you're in. It is very difficult. And here I am just a little piece of the puzzle that really just wants to let you all know that we all hear you. And if you have any questions, we are all open here, and I want to reach out to more of you and just know more about how you guys are and what we can make this place better. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Vallejo. David. And next up is Trustee Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. You guys stole a lot of what I wanted to say, so I'm essentially going to be a parrot here. I wanted to congratulate all the winners of the Employees of the Year. It's a lot of work, and I'd like to see people recognized for the good work that they do, and it's really awesome to see at the end of each year those employees getting that recognition. Also, Mr. Nash, you did a great job your first time. Don't worry about it. It'll all become natural after a certain amount of time. So just kind of ease into that role. And thank you, Mr. Miller. Every month you come in and give us all the information as well for the teachers. And just welcome back from break, and hopefully we have a great second semester.
Thank you, Trustee Nelson. And myself, Trustee Stafford. Just welcome back everybody from break. Hopefully you recharged your batteries. My commitment to you as your board president is to make a difference, to listen to all the different sides, ask questions, engage our leadership, and know what is going on. So understand, we have to sort through a lot of things, and we take it very seriously. So we like to serve is what we do, and we're at your discretion to have us serve you in all the things that you may question or be concerned about. So thank you very much and welcome back. So next we'll go to item 10.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees on non-agendized items.
No cards this evening.
No cards, okay, that's good. We'll move now to the consent calendar. 11.1, consent calendar, approval of consent calendar items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, anything? And we have that one item pulled, right? Okay. Okay, you can vote electronically. .1 passes 5-0. Next item is oral reports continued. 12.1, curriculum, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium and English Language Proficiency Assessments for California update. Charles Tippy will be doing a presentation.
Good evening, President Stafford, honorable members of the board, Superintendent Bennett, and district cabinet members. I have the privilege of sharing the local control accountability plan annual update for goal number 1. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Goal number 1 is focused on proficiency in ELA and math as measured by the Smarter Balanced assessments and the English proficiency assessments for California. So within this goal, we have several metrics or indicators that we look at. The LCAP was a 3-year outcome, so we were looking at reaching these accomplishments by the 2023-24 school year. So the first 3, actually all of these listed on, excuse me, on this slide have to do with the, sorry. Where's this closer? I'll hear about this one later. So all of these metrics have to do with the state dashboard accountability system. The first 3 are focused on our English learners, the English learner progress indicator that combined, it used to combine the EL reclassification rates and the results of the LPAC scores. They made a minor change this year in that indicator to exclude the reclassification rates. However, that's a very, very important indicator that we'll continue monitoring and we will include in our LCAP in the future. The last 2, the academic indicators for ELA, those are based on the Smarter Balanced assessments that the students in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11 take. So it's not all of the students in the district, but just those grade levels. And then for the dashboard, CMI as a dependent charter is not included in the dashboard. So we're looking at students in our district for the Paris Union High School District report, students in grades 7 and 8 and 11. So it's on all of the students. And those were the goals that we were looking towards in 2023, 2024. These other ones are also included. These are things that we have fully credentialed teachers, access to, all of our students have access to standards aligned materials. Those are some pretty common ones that we have. And then these other ones are reflection tools that staff look at on how we're implementing the standards throughout the district. So there are a couple important things for goal number 1. Really, really important to remember when we're looking at this data, we're looking at test score results from the 2021-22 school year. So and I was kind of, as I was prepping the data, I was thinking back about where we were at that time. It was a very, very difficult year. If you guys remember the start of the year, we came back to in-person learning. There were a lot of students out on quarantine and sick. There were teachers out. I remember we were out subbing classes because we had shortages of guest teachers at the time. And then just getting back into that routine, it was a very, very challenging year. So keep in mind when you're looking at this data, it is data from the 2021-22 school year. Regarding the dashboard changes, the state legislature actually came out with a AB 130 that prohibits the publication of the growth from the previous dashboard cycle into this report on the state dashboard. So typically, the dashboard looks at status, looking at how well our students are performing, and then comparing the current year status to the previous year and looking for improvement. So it's always been a two-part tier, how well you're doing and how much you improved from the previous school year. This dashboard report is only going to include status, and it's basically establishing a new baseline for us to move forward. When the kids take the test, actually in a few months, they're gonna start testing, a month probably. Those scores will be compared to the 2021-22 baseline scores that we're gonna see right now. A new change for the dashboard as well, participation rates. There are new and significant penalties for testing less than 95% of your students. So that participation rate is based on enrollment in CalPADS. And if you don't hit that 95% participation rate of students tested, then the penalties for that were significant. For the ELPI, English Learner Progress Indicator, once again, they're no longer including the reclassification rates in the calculation for the dashboard. And they also have significant penalties for the ELPI as well. So if a school or a district didn't hit 95% participation on the ELPI, then we automatically get a status of low. And unfortunately, that happened for us in our district and for a couple of the schools as well. So this is kind of just a refresher. It might be new if you haven't seen it before, but how the dashboard works for the academic indicators and the ELPI. So once again, it looks at two things: status, looking at where our students are at, how they're performing, and then change, how they did compared to the year before. So it's a one-year comparison on the dashboard. This year, it's only the status change, and then those two components are put together to identify where the school, district, subgroup ends up on the dashboard 5x5. And I didn't want to get too technical here, but the way that they measure status or achievement here is looking at the very, very lowest score that a student can get to achieve the performance level of standard met and be on track for college and careers. So you're going to notice here on the chart that a third grade score starts at a 2432, and then by the time the students get into 11th grade, they're up to a 2583. Those are the minimum, the lowest score that a student can get to be college and career ready in terms of the dashboard and the accountability. So what they do is they take that number and then average it out for district, school, subgroup to identify the average of how close to that threshold or minimum score the subgroup is. So are they below or above that? So in sample A here for an elementary school, the lowest score for 5th grade was a 2502. And if the elementary school A, their average was a 2522, they were actually 20 points above the threshold score. So that would be 20 points above. Elementary school B in 5th grade, it's still the same threshold because we're still looking at 5th grade. If they got a 2500, they would be a -2, and that would be a lower status, obviously. So that's status. And then once again, change, really simple comparison. We look at scores in the current year compared to the previous year. In this example, this is from 15-16, the score was 2540 for the school. The following year it was 2520, and that would be a -20. And then those two components are put together. So school A here, they were at a +47. So that would be a high status, a very high status, but unfortunately they declined in that compared to the previous year. They would actually get a yellow on the dashboard. So it is looking at those two things and combining them into the graph here. In example B, school had a -2 status, but they had significant improvement from the previous year, so that would actually get them a green status, and those two things are combined. So that's how the dashboard will look this school year when our kids test. We're really looking to have significant change so that we can get into the green and blue areas Other significant points here, there were significant declines from the previous dashboard in 2020 and 2019. That was consistent across the state and the district. Obviously, COVID and the school closures had a big impact on our kids and their scores, so that was one of the main reasons that you didn't see a comparison to 2019 or even 2021. Not all schools took the same test. So really, once again, 2021-22 school year establishes a new baseline for us, and we're looking to improve in the current year. So getting into the actual scores here, these two subgroups, the 2 or more races and the white subgroup, were the only two that were not in the very low categories. I did want to highlight, when we look at the next slides, it shows you that number in this example, 19.6 points above standard. So that was their average score, scaled score in that subgroup. Another thing to be aware of is where it says number of students. That's the number of students in that particular subgroup. So when the numbers are smaller, we have to be a little bit more careful, understanding that the group is not as big. So our overall student group, all students in ELA, and then all other numerically significant subgroups were in the very low category for English language arts. And then you can see listed out, they do vary quite a bit depending on the different groups, but definitely it was a tough year and the scores show that. And then moving on into the math indicator, our Asian and Filipino subgroups, they actually got high on the math test. Once again, kind of be careful of the number of students in those subgroups. And then 2 or more races in the white subgroups were in the low categories. And then the overall all student subgroup and then all other numerically significant subgroups were in the very low categories. And then, so we move on to the LP. This is looking at only our English learner students. And once again, it's looking at how the students performed on the LPAC, the English Learner Assessment. So all of our EL students take the LPAC every school year, the annual assessment. This indicator looks at on a student level. So this one is looking at growth from one year to the next on the individual student level. So if I sit down and take the LPAC in 2021, I was at a level 2 and move up to a level 3, the school would get credit for that as a positive here. And then it also looks at the number of students or the percentage of students scoring a 4 as well. So we're looking at individual student growth and the percentage of students that hit a 4 on that. So if you look at I know it's hard to see on the right here, but anything over 45% is in the medium category. Our district actually was 51.1%, and that would have put us in a medium, but unfortunately we didn't hit the participation rate. We missed it by about 2%, so we got an automatic low assignment on the LP. And then if one positive here, Pinacate Middle School met both their participation rate criteria and they got a very high with 65.3% of their students meeting the growth target there. And once again, in our district, we would have hit that, but the participation caught us off on that. Same thing with Liberty didn't have a status level because they didn't have enough students to meet the minimum criteria, but they did really well on their assessments. And then Paloma would have hit it as well, but they missed the participation criteria. So as I mentioned before, the reclassification rate is not included in the dashboard anymore officially, but it's definitely something that CDE tracks and we'll be monitoring as well. You're gonna see one dark blue bar there. That's our district estimated results from last year. The state hasn't released that data yet. You can see that there were obviously declines across district, state, and county in the 2020-21 school year. And really that's a result of when COVID hit in the middle of March of 2020, our students hadn't finished testing, and testing was disrupted at that time. So the LPAC and the Smarter Balance assessments go into reclassification. So there's a bit of an increase, artificial increase from students moving from one year to the next. But I can say that we've been working really, really hard in the EL department to reclassify as many students as we can. And the numbers are looking positive even with that artificial inflation there. So goal one, successes and challenges. Obviously last year, once again, attendance for students being out on COVID and participation rates were a big challenge. A lot of our students were at home during testing, and we had remote testing administration where the proctor was on site, but the student may have been at home. And then just once again, that transition back to school really, that whole year was a challenge, and it shows in the scores. Successes, we did have increased credit recovery last year. We were getting a lot of our kids caught up on their credits. We did a big focus on social emotional learning, and then we decreased the failure rates in the previous year as well. And Ms. Erold's going to share more information about that in her presentation, but I did want to highlight it here. So those were kind of looking back at the 2021-22 school year. And I just wanted to see if there were any questions on the data so far, and we did want to share a little bit of what we're doing right now in the current school year in regards to goal number one.
I have probably a bunch.
Okay.
So in looking over the data, a couple of things, and I know that sometimes some school districts, they get started with the LCAP process, in my opinion, way too late. You know, a lot of times we're now discussing how to spend money, you know, in March, April, and it's like, okay, so we just lost, you know, 7, 8 months of targeted instruction, resources, services. So, and me being new, at what point in the year do we start looking at the LCAP and then to at least kind of figure out, you know, we're meeting groups, or how does that work?
May I assist with that one, sir?
Yes, sure. Please.
This sort of goes beyond Mr. Tippy and his position, and he deals with this LCAP goal. But Diane Martin really guides us through LCAP, and I think you'll find in our district that LCAP process is an ever ongoing process, and it's for the very reasons you just mentioned. So the reason you're seeing this goal tonight is because we break up those goals over multiple months to allow for this depth of discussion and early planning. And as you know, and I've seen other districts that sort of rush through all 4 goals, give you guys like a 2-hour presentation and then approve it all. They are broken up into the various LCAP goals over various nights, again, to repeat it, to allow this kind of rich discussion with you.
Okay,
So,
thank you. So on the 19.3 RFEP rate, how do we, obviously the services are still remaining, how do we monitor the success in that? Because I know sometimes,
that one is Mr. Tippy's.
I know, I think now that I kind of got the goal stuff, I'm with them on that. But, and so I guess, you know, sometimes students, and obviously RFEPs are some of our most vulnerable students because they're transitioning out of that. They're not completely IFEP'd in there, but they're right kind of in the middle. And a lot of times I see school districts spend the money on the ones who are in the EL programs. And so these kids are kind of in the middle. The IFEP kids are usually, they're good and they're figuring their way out in the general ed. But how are we making sure, or what are we doing to ensure that they're continuing to be monitored for their success? Because that's a pretty, 20% is a pretty high number, which is good.
Yeah.
You know, it's good if they're having success.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, that success can turn into failure really quick, you know, by being pushed too quickly. So if you could just comment on that. That
No,
would be
absolutely,
great.
and that's a really good point. So all of our students that reclassify, and this is a statewide requirement, they have to get a 4 on the LPAC. So we have a new English Learner Monitoring Program, and that includes our RFEP students. So once a student is reclassified, we monitor them for 4 years at the minimum. And with the Elevation system, it's been a great platform to allow us to do that. So at each of the school sites, we have English Learner teacher leads. So those are teachers that are released 4 periods a day at most sites, and then some of the other smaller sites, 2 periods a day. But we have those students in Elevation, which allows us to identify exactly who they are. For our English learner students, we have the teachers in designated ELD class, monitor those students, and we do that twice a year. For the RFEP students, our reclassified students to reclassify, they're already being successful academically on the LPAC and then on the Smarter Balance assessments or the STAR reading assessments. So the overwhelming majority of our students, when they reclassify, they are successful. But what we'll do for those students is we run a query for our grades, and then if students are falling behind, we have the ELA teacher do the monitoring forms for them as well.
Could I also add, Mr. Campos, that you mentioned earlier you want the good news and the bad news. You noted that the reclassification is really high this year. There's also a phenomenon that you're probably aware of, but to make everyone aware, that last year reclassifications were low across the state for everyone given COVID and everything else. So this year, they are higher than normal because we're probably capturing kids that would have reclassified last year, and they're also reclassifying this year. So again, we never want to bring you numbers and act like we did this great work and huge response. I think we did great work, all of our teachers, all of our people, and we had very good numbers, but they are also probably higher this year because we're capturing some that didn't get captured the previous. And next year we'll have a more return to baseline number for you. It'll still be a growth, but we won't see 20%, as you know, every year.
Right.
That's kind of the oddity of the moment.
Yeah, and then where are we at in the 3-year plan? I just kind of lost track where I'm at, being a little bit out of the loop, but, so I know there were like 3-year plans that we were so where are we at? Where are we sitting now within the 3-year plan that was created?
So this is year 2, I believe, right?
Year 2? Okay.
Yeah, because our goal is to get to those targets during the 2022-23 school year, so that would be next year.
Okay, and I think my last one, I noticed there was significant groups and populations that were very low. And like for me, those are the kids that we really need to spend time and resources and services on. And so, I would like to know at some point, when that time comes, how can we, whether it's through LCAP committee, and how it's spent, or how can we improve those literacy rates? Because we need to make sure that we're targeting that group. I mean, obviously LCAP should be a big part of that, is to
Absolutely.
make sure that we capture that, because those are the students that, we might not be, they might not be successful right now, but with time and intense direct services and different types of programs that we have going, we can bridge that gap so that when they leave Paris Union, they're able to go out there, be literate, and go out and be able to, be a good citizen and get it.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue to the next part. Yeah, so that worked in perfect. So I'm glad you brought that up. And everything we've seen so far is referring back to the 21-22 school year. What we're going to look at right now is the district-wide focus on literacy and integrated ELD. So integrated ELD is the idea that all teachers are teachers of English language development. So it's not just the designated ELD teacher in first period teaching English 3D curriculum, but the idea that the math teacher is also teaching language, the science teacher teaching language. So in our October PD, we had a district-wide focus where we trained all 400 plus teachers on literacy and integrated ELD, so that once again, that reading across the curriculum was the main focus for our PD in October. And then we also know if it's not monitored, then it's optional. So this school year, we implemented the STAR reading assessment. So all of our kids in grades 5 through 10 will be taking the STAR reading assessment 3 times a year. And then our English learners and our students on IEPs will also be taking that in 11th and 12th grade. So there's 3 test administrations to establish, the first one obviously to establish a baseline, and then 2 more administrations throughout the year to monitor growth. So these are pictures from the October PD where we focused on integrated ELD and literacy. And then this slide here is looking at the status predictor that gives us an idea of the percentage of students and where they might perform on the summative SBAC assessment. So from our fall administration, which was the last 2 weeks of August, to the December administration right before Christmas break, wasn't too much of an increase in terms of the status indicator. We saw about a 2% decrease of students in levels 1. But what we were excited about was that 62% of our students showed either typical growth or high growth on those two comparisons. So going from test administration 1 in August to December, we did see a significant amount of growth for our students overall. And then this slide is showing that breakdown by grade level.
And the reason we went to a new diagnostic this year is our former just gave us Lexile score, and this gives us a much richer, a lot of different points of interest beyond just the Lexile readings. We were happy to see in this mid-year 62% growth. 60% of students showed some growth.
Yep.
Doesn't mean there's 60% growth for each student. That would be 2-1.
Thank you, Mr. Tippy.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll move now to 12.2 curriculum, semester 1 grade update by Director Zerold.
Okay. This is a real nice moment to come before you, but it is nice to bring you good news. If we could go to the next slide, we've been monitoring failure rates since we returned from COVID. As you know from our last board meeting, we've done lots and lots of interventions to help struggling students. And this gives you some background knowledge and sort of a longitudinal look at this, that prior to COVID, 13.2% of grades issued were Fs. That jumped to 27.2, so more than doubled in COVID. I mean, we had students suffering from terrible learning loss. So we set a goal, we refocused our PLCs. We were very concerned about intervention fatigue, meaning, you know, if 7 teachers try different things, that's a lot for a kid to process. So we asked each department to come up with one research-based intervention, implement that with fidelity, see if it was working to help kids pass. Our teachers responded very well and were very dedicated. And last year, as you see, we set a goal to reduce it to by 7.2% or 7%. We beat that and we dropped it down to 17.5 last year. So we had really phenomenal early results there. I think then our next goal was to return to baseline, 13.2. In this first semester, we did not make that goal. We made it to 15.9, still a reduction. But again, this was a goal set 2 years ago. If I'm really genuine with you, we probably wouldn't have set the goal that lofty. We would have known more about how hard the recovery would have been, and we would have built more incremental growth because we all thought kids would kind of bounce back. We were all really optimistic, and they haven't bounced back as quickly as we thought. So I'm actually very pleased that it's still trending down, 17.5 to 15.9. Each step now, this is harder yardage. But our teachers are working very hard. Our administrators are working very hard. All of our intervention folks. We still have set that goal for 13% next year at the end of this semester, and we would like to be, eventually, we think if we keep these interventions going as we have, that we can actually beat the previous over subsequent years. We'd like to get below 10%. But you gotta, these are our kids, it's their lives. As you spoke about a minute ago, it's about setting them up for success beyond high school. And so, you know, we've got to set a lofty goal here. And it's better to do that and come up a little short than set easy goals and come before and say, hey, we met it. You know, we really want to do this meaningful work. So as always, we do deep dives on all of these things, and Ms. Zerold is going to take you through a deeper dive on these actual grades. But we want to thank all of our colleagues, our teachers, and our administrators for the fidelity and attention to this work. And I'll let Ms. Zerold continue through.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm excited to kind of talk you through where we've seen some of the biggest changes, the direction we're going. I'm going to set the stage a little bit. You have a lot of data in front of you. I don't know if you've looked at the presentation ahead of time, but there are a lot of data slides. And we're going to go through all 4 core departments. We're going to look at overall grades for all grade levels. Then you're going to also see it broken down by subgroups. So you're going to see EL, you're going to see SPED. Then you're going to see our different subgroups that include the African American population, our Hispanic population, our foster youth, and our homeless students. So you're going to be kind of inundated with a lot of data. I will highlight some key areas and then definitely ask questions along the way or at the end of the presentation so I can answer those for you. So the first content we start with is language arts, and you'll see that this is a comparison from 21-22 to 22-23. I think the easiest way to look at this chart is the more red, the worse it is. So you'll see that from 21-22, there is a lot less red in 22-23. And some grade levels, you'll see half of the failure rate, which means more kids are being successful, more kids are passing. So less red, more blue is what we really want to see as we look through the different grade levels. The next slide, this is the overall pass rate. So the chart above, this is showing you by grade level the success rate. So this means any student that passes the English courses, so D's or higher, are included in that chart above. And then you'll see it highlighted down below the percentage of F's that took place in English language arts. So this includes all English classes, including our EL classes as well. So you'll see when you look at that chart, the lighter the blue, the lower the percentage. The darker the blue, the higher the percentage. So you'll see some pretty significant shifts for some of the grade levels. So you'll see in 10th grade, we went from 76% up to 81%. So you'll see, we really want to see those colors increasing in blue and that number decreasing when you look at the overall Fs. This slide highlights our special ed population. You'll see some really significant shifts. Although the F rate stayed stagnant with special ed, you'll see some really significant shifts, primarily in that 12th grade level. You see a big shift in the success of those students in special ed. And we know that coming back from COVID, this population, our Yale population, are some of the students that struggled the most during COVID, not having access to a lot of the additional supports that they were used to having in that face-to-face instruction. Here's a look at our EL students. So you'll see that we did have a decrease of about 2% for our EL students. Again, you'll see some very significant shifts. The 7th grade, we had over a 10% shift in passing grades. You'll see some where you had a little bit of a decrease. 12th grade, you had a slight decrease. But overall, we're seeing some significant shifts in that decrease in Fs. Here is a look at our subgroups. So you'll see all of our subgroups went down except for foster youth and homeless. I kind of want to highlight this because there's some key factors that really calculate into this. Our foster youth and our homeless numbers fluctuate greatly from year to year. I do know that when we looked at the previous year, 21-22, compared to 22-23, with our foster youth, we had about half the number of foster youth this year as we did last year. So some of that data we always kind of question because this is reported by the state, so we take it directly from the state, and we know that we have more students that are probably in foster care than are actually designated. So those numbers are always a concern to us. We don't know how accurate they are when we're getting the designations from the state. Here's a look at the grades by site. I like looking at this slide because it really highlights the efforts of our teachers at each of the sites. This is the first time we get to highlight Liberty. We didn't have any data to compare them to last year. And so looking at this is really exciting to see when they had a low percentage last year with their data for their first year with 9%, but even were able to significantly drop that by almost half going into the first semester of this year. So it's nice to see it by school site. When we look at this, we also see that Pinacati had a little bit of an increase, and as well as Heritage. I think there's a lot of factors that kind of play into that. I know Heritage, they had a lot of transitions of students going to the new high school. They have a smaller population. They also had a lot of teacher movement last year when Liberty opened. So there's a couple different factors that I think play into that. And then with middle school, I think that's where we really saw, as they were coming back from COVID, those deficits with some of those basic skills they need to be successful. Then this is our look at our alt-ed. The alt-ed data is always challenging to collect. We were not able to get Scholar Plus data just due to inputting of the courses within Infinite Campus. We couldn't figure out what the error was that wouldn't pull that data. We do know that those students that go to Scholar Plus and Paris Lake, they vary greatly and they generally change from quarter to quarter. It's not a very consistent population. You'll have a lot of students coming in and out of those programs. So you'll see that that's fairly consistent with each of the content areas.
You're throwing out all this data, and I'm curious, what is like the main reason or excuse for them fail? Is there a common denominator amongst each group where we could get that data and do something about that?
Well, what I could say is the PLC process is where that really comes into play. When they're looking at it by content, the teachers are looking at it by their content, their grade level. So, for example, you would have a 9th grade English class or English group. You might have 5 to 10 teachers within that English 9 group, and they're going to look at their student population. They're going to look at their successes and their challenges. They're going to look at their subgroups, and they're going to talk about who's doing well and who's struggling. And it might be based on a student population. They might also see significant differences in success from teacher to teacher, and that's where the PLC process is really important in establishing trust with their teams, because having those delicate conversations about, wow, you really rocked this last standard, my students didn't do very well, what did you do and how can we help support our students? I know a lot of teachers have really done a good job of connecting with each other and actually doing interventions and supports with each other. If they share, for instance, an algebra class, there might be 2 teachers that have algebra second period, and they divide their groups up into these students did really well and these students really struggled, and have one teacher do intervention and support and the other teacher doing some enrichment activities. And so they've gotten very creative with some new interventions. Coming back from COVID, I think it really gave us some different ideas on how we can capture kids, and not coming back and doing the exact same thing that we did before we went out on COVID.
The other thing I would say, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I apologize. No. I was just going to say, so they're utilizing their strengths where they're lacking.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, our students that have those deficits and are always have some of those challenges based on either being on an IEP or being a second English learner, those students really struggled with not having some of those foundational skills. And so this last year was really about reestablishing some of those foundational skills and being able to get students caught up. And I think we're still going to see some deficits. I think when we get to the math section, you'll see math is you have to have foundational skills to be able to be successful in math. And so if you didn't pass algebra, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle to get caught up. And I think that's where we're seeing, a little bit more of a shift that those supports have really come into play, was providing different types of interventions than we were pre-COVID, that we're seeing some significant increases based on some of the conversations that are taking place in the PLCs.
I would just say you're asking the big question. I want you to know, or the whole board to know, that with each of these slides, and we go beyond even these, there's long discussion. So with some of this data, we get answers. Some of them create big questions that we go on an exploration. For instance, I won't go into it because we could spend an hour on this, but why is it that we saw a significant increase in our 7th graders as they transition from 6 to 7? We usually see a decline, but this year 7th graders did really well, but our 8th graders didn't. So we know it was a hard year for everybody last year, and that learning loss might be hitting 8th graders harder than it hit 6th graders who were finishing their elementary school and then made the transition. Whereas if you didn't get the foundation, say in math or English in 7th grade, now 8th grade. So that's a postulation now, and we've got to go explore that. So every data point here solves something, and then it sends us on a quest to answer and explore. So you're asking the million-dollar question. We have to ask it of every data point we see.
And what we ask of the school sites and of the departments when they're going through the PLC process, the principals are going through their data, they're looking at it. They're looking at it based on the subject area, the grade level, working with their PLC team. So they're looking at it from the school view, and then the departments are looking at it from their departmental view, and then you get down to the grade level within those departments, and they're looking at individual students. So we look at it from a higher lens, but they really start to break down those different levels to really get to the root of the problem.
So I had a question, but I also wanted to respond to that too as well, because, sometimes, I've been in this game long enough, sometimes you get a really good group of kids that are
You do?
academically there, and they're gonna go. And then sometimes a year later, like, well, what happened? Like, there was a big drop off, and that's understood. I mean, we strive for perfection, but, will we ever get there is the question that we keep striving. So one of my things provide funding for like field trips to motivate these struggling students? Because I know, a lot of times kids weren't very academic. I wasn't an academic kid, and I remember the principal mentioning, he had, sometimes, especially guys, like sometimes we just don't get, I was all into my sports and this, that, and the other. But I know that when you take, I mean, even when I went to little school board training, you get little bags of cool little pencils and all these little goodies. But providing those opportunities for those students could be the thing that can kind of trigger, hey, you know what, maybe I'm gonna go this way. And, and to follow that up, I had written down, for our special education population, same thing, kind of giving them tangible options that are not so academic. I know at our site with our STEM program, some of the kids who struggle academically, they're phenomenal in those classes because they get to tinker with things, they get to make things, build motors, and they get to see their thoughts and their actions and their work actually moving and doing something as opposed to, writing something on paper. Not that that's not important, but putting their thoughts down on that. I don't know if you want, I got one more after that, but if you want to go ahead and.
I can, let me do the first two so that I don't forget what your first question was. So we absolutely put money towards supporting our struggling students and establishing, some motivation. One of the things that we really focused on, I know Mr. Ruff talked a little bit about it at the beginning, was we put a lot of focus on MTSS supports, so tiered interventions and supports. One of the things that we brought in was some motivational speakers. We brought in some opportunities for students to work in small groups with leadership and team building. So that's been really good for the kids. We've had that across all of our school sites. Some sites have even added additional services because the kids enjoyed it so much. We always encourage and support taking students on field trips. We took, last year we took some groups of students to the Museum of Tolerance, and that was a really great experience. Am I forgetting some of the? I know that's something that was really important to us when we came back from COVID, was that motivation piece. And, we always toy with, we have a 7-period day, which is really great for kids, but can also be really challenging for kids because now you have 7 opportunities to be successful or not successful. But where that 7-period day really comes in is it provides extra opportunities for us to provide interventions. But to touch on your second statement was, that's how we really allow more students to have access to elective courses, classes that are of their choice, not of the requirement, things that get students engaged. We know that students, like, for instance, our ag programs at both Paris High School and Heritage, a lot of those students are hands-on students that aren't necessarily academic, but really thrive in that ag type environment because it's hands-on. They don't have to sit in a classroom every single day. They get to be out on the farm and really get their hands dirty. And so I think because we have really great CTE programs at all of our school sites, every school site has a different niche that is different from the other school sites. And I think that's also a really big benefit for our district as a whole because we are a district that allows students to go to any of our schools. They have opportunities to pick the program that they want to be a part of. And we have auto shop at 2 of our schools. We have culinary at one of our schools, right? So there's tons of opportunities that our students have in lots of different pathways, and I think that really helps keep them connected to school as well.
Yeah, well, I like seeing the different classes that were being created because they weren't your typical regular class, which is, accredited. And then the staff, you mentioned, with the PLC work, the staff reflection of knowing, hey, that didn't work, but they're back in the lab and they're fixing things, trying to figure out what works and what didn't. And then my last one, and this, because I see it in middle school, but on the ELA failure rates, I'm noticing a lot of kids, they're so hooked to technology, and I don't know if sometimes it's a hindrance. In terms of looking at and kind of doing like a little bit of a dive as to what is it that is bringing those failure rates, because obviously, reading and literacy, that opens up the world to everything. If a kid can read, whether for pleasure or for information, knowledge, it changes their world because then whatever they're interested in, they'll go in and they'll start reading. And so, again, going back to that, so as the failure rates, is it creativity that they lack? Is it grammar? Is it comprehension? Is it tech? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but obviously, it's something I think that's probably starting at a lower level, and then I know at the middle high school level, is there anything that is kind of out there that's kind of?
I can answer that one, 'cause it has actually a little more to do with Mr. Tippy's presentation before the train that happened in the fall. There are lots of things, and you're speaking of some of them, but background knowledge and vocabulary development are primary for students as they enter high school. So really, a lot of those trainings were involved in bridging those gaps, slowing down, chunking those lessons, and building background knowledge and vocabulary, depth of vocabulary. So we're seeing some growth, as you saw in the last presentation for ELs, but of course it is a lot to learn. As you know, it takes a couple of years to learn basic interpersonal communication, but academic language proficiency, it takes, 3 to 6 years for your average human being person. So we've got to try to accelerate that curve and give them every advantage.
Yeah, and that was a big focus. Literacy was a huge focus for us as we started the school year, as we went into our professional development. Every teacher went through an EL training as well as a literacy training. So every teacher in the district went through both of those required trainings, and so they got the same instruction to get them to use those strategies in the classroom so that they're consistent for students. Because as I think Mr. Breff mentioned earlier, is having too many different ways that they're having teachers come at them, trying to figure out, especially coming back from COVID, I think we all like to know what the expectation of us is. Students do too, and if they're changing classes from one class to the next 7 times, and they have a teacher that has different expectations each time, establishing a little bit more structure and consistency coming back from COVID was really important to us so that students weren't feeling overwhelmed. And we know that students are still feeling overwhelmed. So we've talked to students, and I think that's been some of the best data that we've been able to collect, is having personal conversations with students and, really hearing that we have a lot of students that were disappointed in themselves and kind of got stuck in that rut of, I didn't do very well, but then it kind of spiraled because they felt like they were in this hole that they couldn't get themselves out of. And I think that that's where some of the social emotional stuff and supports that we were able to provide for our students has really helped kind of give them a little bit more motivation, a little bit more belief in themselves to be successful again. And I think that has a lot to do with improvement in grades as well, is just changing that mindset and having that belief in themselves that they can get caught up, and because there are lots of opportunities that we've been putting forth for them to get caught up, I think people are starting to see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think we're definitely not caught up from COVID, but I think we're seeing some really big jumps from last year to this year.
People we brought before you at the last board meeting, and the numbers we gave you, over 10,000 one-on-one conversations about keep trying, keep going. That's all connected to ultimately doing better in the classroom. And we have to keep faith in that, we believe, and keep supporting students emotionally as they struggle through this rough patch.
Yeah. So moving on to math, similar slide that we showed when we started looking at the English, and you'll see that there is not as significant of a shift in that red area. I really think that this comes back to those foundational skills that they have to be able to be successful in high school math. They're taking algebra, they're taking geometry, they're taking algebra 2, and if they didn't get those algebra 1 skills, prerequisites when they were in middle school, they were in middle school during COVID. Some of our students only got to attend middle school for a half of a year. Pennicotti's is just 7th and 8th grade. They were only in school for a half a year, so making sure that when they do get to the high school that we're really working on some of those foundational skills. So
I actually have a quick question. Do teachers have the freedom to, or how much freedom do they have to kind of change the curriculum to where they think students can be better at math and English because they're the most troubled ones, especially math because I was terrible at math. But it's how much freedom do they have to where they can change it? Because I know there's some standards too for the state. But
so we provide a curriculum to all of our teachers, like Algebra 1, for instance. There are specific standards that are tied to Algebra 1. Our Algebra 1 teams have established essential standards. These are their standards that all students in algebra should have access to. That's what we require, and it's not more than usually 10 standards in the course. We try and really make sure that students get really good at those 10 standards. So the teachers have the flexibility to look at where their students are, where their students need to get to, and provide instruction that helps them get from point A to point B. So they have some flexibility. You know, I'm not walking in classrooms and saying you're not on page 72 teaching this standard on Tuesday, September 4th. Like, we're not that rigorous when it comes to the pacing. I always feel like teachers, you have the best opportunity to see where your students are, and you know where you need to get your students. And that's what we want to see is we want to see growth. And I think that that's been our primary focus the last year and a half, is to see growth in our students. We don't want perfection. We know we're not going to get perfection. We just want growth from, you know, the beginning of this year to the end of this year. So when we look at our data, when you look at Goal 1 data with the SBAC, our hope is just to see growth from last year to this year with our students. Our students take assessments in their math and English classes that, you know, in English they take a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and an end of the year assessment. What we want to see is we want to see improvement from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So you'll see here, this is the overall math data. You'll see that we did have a 1% increase. Again, I really think that is connected to some of those foundational skills, but you will see some big increases in success with that, you know, 69% to 75% in 10th grade. A lot of those students are probably in algebra or geometry if they're on track. And so really kind of looking at the data and having those PLC conversations on where the students are falling short and what standards they are. And so those conversations in their PLC teams, not just within their content, but also those vertical conversations as they're getting students ready. Primarily second semester, they're going to really start talking about those conversations of where those algebra students are going into geometry, where those skills might be lacking, and what some of the geometry teachers next year might need to focus on as they start so that their students get on track and don't fall behind. So here's a look at the special ed with math. You'll see that they decreased by 3% with the Fs, and you'll see some really big jumps with the success. Those 12th grade students, 11th grade students, 10th grade students. We saw a little bit of a drop in 9th grade, but some significant increases across the board except for in 9th grade. And then a look at our EL students. This is something that we really look at deeply because there is a significant increase in Fs in EL, and wanting to dig a little bit deeper on why that happened and where the deficit was happening. Is it in a certain content, or is it just as a whole all EL students in math really struggled? Because there are some significant drops when we look at math. And then here's the overall when we look at math, our different breakdown of our demographics. And you'll see pretty consistent, except there is that increase in the Hispanic population, which probably is very well connected to the EL population, and looking at those two correlations. And then again, looking at the foster youth and the homeless, similar conversation, just looking at the numbers being different from year to year. And then here's a look at our schools across the district. So we see that we had decreases except for at Paris High and Pennacotty in math. And then again, looking at our alt ed, this data is similar to that what we saw with English. And then moving into science. Here's a look at what our science data looks like. Some shift down, not any really big shifts, but there is definitely a shift down in the red areas, some increase in the blue, so you'll see a lot more students in the A group than we did before. Overall, we saw a decrease of about 2% for our students in science. Something to also think about is our graduation requirements require 3 years of science. Some districts only require 2. We require 3 years of science. So a typical student will be taking biology, chemistry, and physics is kind of the typical pathway. And you'll see that shift, you know, with when you're looking at math and the correlation with some of the content in chemistry and physics. Those foundational skills are really important as well. But good to see that we did have some significant decreases in science overall. And then a 1% decrease in special ed in our Fs, and really significant decrease with that 12th grade population. Although we only require 3 years of science, some students take 4 years. A lot of seniors that are taking science, they might not have gotten their requirement earlier in their tenure in high school, so that might be part of the reason why they're also taking a senior science class. And then here's a look at our EL students. They had a 1% decrease in science. This would be an interesting conversation that I would maybe try and facilitate. Maybe some of the science teachers that are working with our EL students, having some conversations with our math teachers that are teaching EL, what worked in science. And it might be because there was more hands-on experiences in science and a lot more sit and get in math. And maybe that's some of the correlation, maybe having some conversations about being a little bit more kinesthetic than having students trying to follow along in a lecture. So there's definitely conversations that even cross-content can take place. And then here's a look at our overall subgroups. Again, decreases in the African American, Caucasian, and Hispanic populations. Slight decrease in the other, that's usually more than one race. And then our foster youth and homeless, you'll see that number again is kind of skewed a little bit with the data. But overall, it's pretty consistent. When you see the decrease in the overall science data, then you're going to see a decrease across the subgroups. And then here's a look at our overall school data. When you look at the school data, every school had a decrease with science. So our science teachers are doing something really good. I think that a lot of that just has to do with the opportunity to be able to do labs again. Students did not have a lot of opportunity to do labs when they were at home. They might have virtual labs, but the experience is totally different when you get to be in a classroom and be able to have hands-on with some of those activities. And then again, with our alt ed, sometimes our alt ed students won't have a lot of science, primarily because at the alt ed, the graduation requirement is only 2 years of science versus 3 years. And then finally, social science. We go into social science. You'll see that it's pretty similar from 21-22 to 22-23. Not too many huge shifts. Interestingly, when you look at 8th grade, the red is more, which is an interesting look at some of the data. Kind of want to dig a little bit deeper on what happened with the 8th grade students. But then in 9th grade, you'll see a decrease. 9th grade, you're looking at students that are taking AP Human Geography or any elective social science class. So you're going to have a reduced number of 9th graders in a history class. And then it increases back up in 10th grade when you have world history and US history. And then here's a look at overall social science. So we did see a 1% increase in Fs in social science. And when we look at the different grade levels, you can see that we had a little bit of a fluctuation in 11th grade. That would be your US history students, where there might be some things to look at with that. As well as in 8th grade, there's that significant difference from 91 down to 82%. And then a look at special ed. We saw a decrease in special ed in social science. Looking at big gains in both 9th grade and 12th grade. I think what I really want to emphasize over all 4 content areas with special ed is that special ed actually showed a decrease in all 4 content areas. So that's something to really look at and talk with our special ed teachers. They might have some strategies that are really working with special ed that could also transfer with our EL students as well. And then here's a look at our EL students. You'll see we had a significant increase here of 6% with our history courses. I think a lot of this has to do with the language, and there's a lot more content that's done through reading and comprehension, which is more of a challenge for our students that are second language learners. And then here's a look overall at our breakdown. We had a slight increase with our African American population. The other populations stayed pretty much stable from the previous year. And then the foster youth and homeless, similar to the previous contents as well. And then a look at our overall school data. You'll see that each school except for Pennacati showed a decrease, and that will go back to what we talked about with, we saw that significant population of students in middle school with that increase in Fs for our middle school students. And then here's the overall alt ed data as well. I'm sure I gave you a ton of data, and you probably have lots of questions. We love looking at the data, especially at the end of the semester. We actually look at the data as we go from the 6-week to the 12-week to the 18-week too. So we don't just take a look when the semester ends. We really do try and get ahead of those students that might be on that bubble of not doing very well early so that we can capture them before the end of the semester. But this is just our opportunity to really take a look at the overall data. So any other questions?
So one of the things, and it was kind of in reference to Mr. Labo's comment about looking at different curriculum. I've noticed in the past with EL students, and I know the transition and how math has changed. Math has become very wordy, and sometimes, obviously, with the language barriers that they have, they're already struggling with that, and then now you're creating math with words, and so I don't know, just an idea, to possibly look at a different curriculum where, because the bottom line is, they need to know how to work numbers. Working numbers within sentences, paragraphs, it's a whole different ballgame. But first, working the numbers, because if you don't know how to work the numbers, then you're kind of at a loss.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too, and this was probably one of the, in my own opinion, one of the worst things that ever happened was the No Child Left Behind, and making sure that, not that we're sticking to it, but the 8th grade algebra, to get kids into. The reality is kids, in order to be successful, they got to understand 6th grade math. If you understand 6th grade math, then that opens the door to all kinds of other opportunities. And now I know with those pushes with the math, in high school, when I was in 10th grade, I took algebra. And even to be college ready, that's all I needed. In 10th grade was past that, geometry, algebra 2, then I was college ready. And so, just to make sure, or to look into, make sure they're getting the basics, because once, and again, not everybody's going to college, you know what I mean? But at the same time, if they have a solid foundation in the basic skills, the percentages, all that kind of conversions, I think they'll be pretty well off. And I'm sure you guys know that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And one of the things that we try to get better and better at every year is the collaboration with our collaborative districts, because we are a high school only district. We only have that one middle school with Pinacati that we have, the 3 other districts that feed into us from 4 different middle schools. It's really 4 different districts and 5 different middle schools now, I think. So making sure that collaboration is taking place so students are placed appropriately when they get to this. That's actually where we're kind of almost in the middle of, is those course requests and the new students coming in, is looking at the placement and making sure students are placed appropriately too.
Actually, I had a quick question. So when you guys come up with strategies to, to find a better solution to get those grades back up, what is the process of those strategies? Like, does someone come up with one and then a couple of teachers try it, or how does that work?
It really is based on that PLC conversation. So a lot of times it will be a team decision on what intervention they're going to provide. A great example is the Liberty team with their algebra students. They meet on a weekly basis talking about their Algebra 1 students and students that are doing well and not doing well, and then they provide interventions right away for those students. And so it may be reteaching, it may be taking a test over again, it may be they have to do tutoring a couple of times, and then the opportunity to take the test again. I think that's the biggest thing. And they've really adopted the standards-based grading, which again is probably the best way to grade students, because you're grading them based on what they're proficient in, not if they've turned in their homework or turned in the syllabus and got 100 points for that. It's really based on what they know. And I think that allows us to see really what success level they're at versus, seeing some of the grade differences based on things that don't necessarily show us where we need to go with the instruction. Yeah. Teachers are really creative. We've seen some really great interventions since we came back. And I think people got really creative with COVID because we had opportunities to use technology that we'd never used before. And they've come back using technology in whole different ways. So, well, I appreciate everybody's great questions. Mr. Campos, I know you asked about LCAP. So I do LCAP Goal 2, and I always present in November. So you missed Goal 2, but if you really want to see Goal 2, tomorrow we're presenting to our Parent Advisory Committee. and that is a virtual meeting, so if you wanted to get all the updates with Goal 2, you could definitely get that. And Mr. Tippy's also doing Goal 1 tomorrow as well with the Parent Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Earl. So we'll move on now to written reports. 13.1, general functions. Williams Settlement Quarterly Uniform Complaint Report Summary for October to December 20 through December 2022. We'll move next to 13.2, discipline, December 2022 monthly suspension report. We go now to action items. 14.1, personnel, certificated personnel action items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Garcia, second by Trustee Vallejo. Please vote. We have 5 in favor, none opposed. We move now to 14.2, personnel, classified personnel action items. Do I have a motion? Trustee Garcia? Trustee Nelson? Please vote. Oh, I'm sorry. 14.2 passes 5 in favor, none opposed. 14.3, personnel, approval of variable term waiver request for preliminary administrative services credential. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any questions, concerns? Have you all read this waiver? Okay. We can go ahead and vote. We have 5 in favor, none opposed. 14.4, resolution number 19-22-23, week of the school counselor. Do I have a motion? Trustee Nelson? Second. Okay. Trustee Vallejo? Please vote. We have 5 in favor, none opposed. Next up, we have 14.5, building and grounds, adoption of the fee study justifying an increase in level 1 statutory school facilities fees imposed on residential and commercial/industrial construction pursuant to Education Code Section 1717620 and Government Code Section 65995. No fiscal impact. This agenda item, for agenda item number 145, the governing board will now consider the data presented in the Paris Union High School District Developer Fee Justification Study.
Copel and Gerber Public Finance prepared a fee study detailing the findings required by Government Code Section 66001 and 65995 pertaining to the adoption of school fees, which study has been made available to the public for at least 10 days prior to this regularly scheduled board meeting. Copel and Gerber is here, hi Doug, and can answer any questions as they may arise throughout this process or if you'd like additional information.
Okay, does the board have any questions? Has the district received any written comments on the fee study, and if so, have such comments been forwarded and considered by all board members present as included in the agenda materials for this meeting?
She gave me stuff to read, I'm sorry. No written comments. Oh, I'm sorry, no written comments.
Okay. If there are,
We have to go through the legal proceedings for this, sorry about that.
if there are no written or oral comments, do I have a motion to adopt the fee study? Trustee Trustee Nelson with a motion. Trustee Campos. You can vote electronically now. Fourteen point five passes with 3 in favor and 2 noes. Okay, we'll move now to 14.6, Building and Grounds. Public hearing regarding adoption of resolution number 20-22-23 of the Board of Trustees of the Paris Union High School District approving an increase in Level 1 statutory school facility fees imposed on residential and commercial/industrial construction. Pursuant to the Education Code 17620 and the Government Code Section 65995, no fiscal impact. The public hearing regarding the increase in Level 1 statutory school fees, as justified by the fee study, is now open at 7:14 p.m. Koppel and Gruber. Okay. Public Finance prepared a fee study detailing the findings required by Government Code Section 66001 and 65995, which have already been adopted by this board. Has the district received any written comments regarding the resolution or the district's proposed fee increase? And if so, have comments been forwarded to and considered by all board members present as included in the agenda materials for this meeting?
We have not received any.
If there are no written or oral comments, I will now declare the public meeting closed. Did the clock tick? Okay, at 7:15 p.m. The next item under agenda number. Oh, we have to vote here?
We need to take a motion first.
No, there's more here. Wait a minute. We'll get to that. Okay. The next item under agenda number 14.6 is to consider an increase in the Level 1 residential and commercial/industrial fees by adopting resolution number 2022/23. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Paris Union High School District to authorize approving an increase in Level 1 statutory school facility fees imposed on residential and commercial/industrial construction. Pursuant to Education Code Section 17620 and Government Code Section 65995, do I have a motion to adopt the resolution and increase the Level 1 residential and commercial/industrial fees pursuant to the resolution number 20/22/23? Trustee Nelson with the motion. Second, I'll second it. Trustee Stafford. You can now vote. .6, Building and Grounds does not pass. We have 2 in favor, 3 against. Okay. We move now to 14.7, Business, authorization for the purchase of capital equipment above $10,000, January 2023. Do I have a motion? Trustee Garcia.
Second.
Trustee Vallejo. You can please vote. .7 passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Next, we have information items. 15.1 curriculum. Revised social science course, criminology meets A through G requirements. 15.2, curriculum, revised social science course, youth and law, meets A through G requirements. 15.3, curriculum, new agriculture course, agriculture products, meets A through G requirements. 15.4, curriculum, new agriculture course, agricultural welding, not an A through G course. 15.5, curriculum, new social science elective course, general psychology, meets A through G requirements. We'll continue on to 15.6, business, revolving cash report for 2022. And we go to now 16.1, closed session if necessary.
Yes, we will need to go into closed session.
Okay. So we'll go into closed session. Oh. Do you need a motion? Okay, motion by Trustee Garcia, second by Trustee Vallejo. We're going to go into closed session at 7:19. Okay. It's not showing that here, but let's vote. Okay, 16.1 passes 5 in favor, none opposed. We are now in closed session at 7:19 p.m. Oh, Trustee Garcia and Nelson, okay. You can vote. We have 5 in favor, none opposed. Other items by the superintendent?
Nothing else this evening, Mr. Stafford.
Okay. Other items by the Board of Trustees? Trustee, we'll start here. Bill Hale? No? Trustee Garcia? No, sir. Trustee Campos? Trustee Nelson? Okay. And now we'll need a, wait a minute, what does it say? There's no vote. Okay. 21.1, adjournment. We have a motion by Trustee Nelson, second by, Trustee Garcia. You can take a vote.
You're more than welcome to, but guess what, there's 4 others.
We have 4 in favor, none opposed. We are now adjourned at 8:16.